Hello, I'm here with Halim Ashari, who is the ex-CEO of BW Plantation, which is where I work. So we worked together for 5 years. We worked together for longer than that, because when I was at Danarexa, I worked on the IPO of BW.
Yeah.
So that was starting from about 2007. The IPO was 2009, and then you left in 2015.
Yes.
So it's the best part of 7 or 8 years, and we've stayed in touch ever since.
Yeah, still friends, good friends.
And you're still working in plantations.
Sort of, yeah.
And you are Malaysian.
I think so.
So
Yes,
you follow both what's going on in Indonesia and what's going on in Malaysia, and how the two things relate together.
Two of the world largest producer of CPU.
So maybe we come back to CPO.
Right.
But how do you? And you've lived in Indonesia for how many years?
28 years.
So longer than me. Wow, 28 years. So how do you? What do you feel about Indonesia now?
Now,
What's your outlook for Indonesia?
I think it could be better. You know, if they do certain things correctly. If they go into a little bit more attention to details towards the needs of the public,
Yeah.
like traffic,
So even after all this spending and infrastructure, you still think traffic is an issue and it needs to be addressed?
It needs to be addressed. It has to look into more details. They have to do surveys. They have to do sensors of the dispersion of traffic.
Not just building things.
Just not building things. There's got to be proper planning.
Yeah.
And especially on routine routes like people going to the office, coming back to work. On weekends, where do they go? How do they? The behaviors of all these of the motorists,
So get a bit scientific about it.
Exactly, it has to be a little bit.
And get a bit human about it. It's not about the road, it's about how the humans are.
No, right. They have to look at all aspects of the roads,
Yeah. The people.
The people.
And how do you?
Habits.
And what about Malaysia now? I mean, Malaysia's been quiet for quite a while now. What's going on, and what do you think is likely to happen there? Any surprises?
Things are happening, but not at the pace that the people want it to be, especially in terms of settling the issue of 1MDB.
Yeah.
The culprits are still, free, moving freely in the country, saying things which like they're saints before. And
so what's holding it up? Why is that? Why is it taking so long?
I think the bureaucratic process of the law. And I have the feeling that there is some what do you call that?
People in the legal system.
Uncooperativeness from the government servant that has slowed down all this. And recently there was news that some of the judges are corrupted. So, which is good, at least, Otherwise, all these people will just go scot-free.
So some things are coming out.
And they are not on technical. They're not free on technical matters. So
they need a big win, though. They don't have a win yet.
No.
And what about our industry, palm oil? What do you see in palm oil now?
Well,
where's palm oil heading?
I think palm oil has been contaminated in some ways, just like how soccer has been contaminated by bookies.
Yeah.
If you look at over the past years, the consumption of edible oil 30 years ago up to now has been increasing, and palm oil has quite a big percentage of the share of that world edible oil.
Yes.
But the actual prices of the palm
have
not reflected the demand that it has shown over the past 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
In terms of US dollar value, I think palm oil has not moved very much.
It's gone down.
Yeah, as you say, probably it has gone down. Because there are some people who doesn't look at the actual value of the commodity. They look more on the short-term gains in holding stocks, releasing stocks when they show, so it doesn't make sense because the production of palm oil, or rather especially palm oil, because it's the highest yielding amongst all the oil, has not made any significant improvement. In fact, it's going down, and yet the prices does not reflect those values. So that's disappointing.
You've run several businesses now. You've run Malaysian plantations, you've run Indonesian family-owned plantations, listed companies. What do you think is for you, what are the most important things about running a company successfully?
I think the human capital. I think that's the most important, because any growth or any success of the company is totally dependent on the human capital. You have to put the right people at the right place. They must have the right knowledge, and they are able to make the right decisions, which is detrimental to the efficiency of the operations, which subsequently result in the bottom line of the company. I would put human capital
always number one.
The most important of any company. As per any company.
Entrepreneur or professional?
Mixture of both, to me. At an early stage, I think you need 70% entrepreneurship and 30% of professionalism. At the later stage, probably you need a balance of both.
And what are the key entrepreneurial elements?
To make strategic decisions. The strategic planning is very important. When people talk about strategy, they always talk about where the company is going to be in 3 years' time, where the company is going to be in 5 years' time. But they fail to look at the day-to-day running of the estate, the strategic decisions to be made on the day-to-day running of the estate, of the company. Because you deal with human beings, you deal with living things.
Yes.
And you have to monitor them every day.
Yeah.
You have to look for a system to monitor them every day so that it doesn't become so expensive.
Yeah.
And even if it is expensive, you still have to monitor them. Otherwise when things falter.
So you'd like to see daily data?
Oh yes, of course. Daily performance of every individual.
Tracking daily data.
Because sometimes when people get carried away, when people get excited, they overdo things. And sometimes if people are not excited, they don't do things, which is even worse.
Yeah.
So that is why we have to be there to monitor and to see how they perform. Is it within the guidelines or the strategic guidelines that you've laid out? Because
that's a very interesting point, because most people, when they think about long-term success, which is what everybody wants, they think about planning for the long term. But what you're saying is the way to achieve the long-term success is to focus on the very short term.
Exactly. You just resolve those little things. The big things will resolve itself. Right? That's how I feel. You go into the details, the big picture will be correct.
Yeah.
If you look at the big things, then you forgot the details, and that the little things will become bigger, which if you address earlier could be much more cheaper and much more effective. So I think it's easier to start than to correct.
The money is in the detail.
The money is in the detail.
Yeah.
So how to improve efficiencies is look at the details. You know, the processes of each and every operations that you have to do. It sounds tedious, it sounds impossible, but it's possible. We have done it before. And we have achieved tremendous results.
Which suggests that you can achieve things that people would never believe possible.
Obviously.
Yeah.
If you go into details.
If you do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.